Hello, welcome to another video, and here's the final version of the painting, right at the start. So now you're probably wondering, how did he do that? Well, I'm gonna show you. I've recorded the entire process, and you're gonna see it, and I'm gonna talk over it. So while you're watching the process, you get to listen to my smoothing voice, like crackling fire, warming your ears. Let's get right into it. So to start off, first I'm gonna talk about my inspiration. So the inspiration for this painting, kind of indirectly, was Porter Robinson Shelter. So if you watched the video, you probably thought to yourself, what the heck, this looks nothing like that video. And that's true. I didn't want to copy paste. I didn't want to make the same thing. I didn't want people to even look at it and draw any conclusions in between the two. And just in case if you haven't watched it, don't worry too much. There won't be any spoilers. You can watch it later. You can watch it right now and pause the video or something. I'm gonna post it below in the descriptions. It's one of the best things I have seen on the internet. So it's worth a watch. And anyway, in what way has that video inspired me? Well, it captured a certain emotion that was for a very long time hard for me to explain. The easiest way for me to explain this would be like childish nostalgia related to when you were a child. And it's a feeling I've always wanted to capture in my paintings. I've never succeeded at it. And for the longest time, I couldn't even figure out what to call that feeling. What was it related to? How did I even get it? What's even the point of it? And I think I've kind of cracked the code. I think I figured it out. What it is a certain type of childish carelessness and happiness that's related to you being a child and not knowing at all what is going on in the world and what the future holds for you. You're not really worried for your future because you have no idea what it's even about. You're just living in this moment and you're trying to make the best of it. Now, it's not a feeling I would like to go back to because it's highly irresponsible. You can't function as an adult if you have that feeling. But it is a feeling I would like to capture through my artwork. And this is where Porter Robinson's Shelter kind of comes in. I think he managed, and his team that worked on the video, I think they've managed to capture that emotion. The main reason for it is because, I guess, no, it's not really a spoiler, it's right at the start. The main girl is kind of trapped in a digital universe that, as far as I figured out, she controls. So she is stuck in her childhood. She doesn't have a care in the world, and she's kind of blissfully stuck, unaware of the outside world, playing with her imagination and living in these fantastical worlds, and nothing bad ever really happens. To keep a long story short, so I think that storyline kind of captured that emotion really, really well. So what they have going for them is they have video, they have music, and they have a storyline. So this is like three different art forms. And I'm trying to capture the same feeling, and I basically only have visual. I only have one frame. I don't even have the video. I don't even have the animation. I just have one frame. So it's kind of a fun but impossible challenge to capture that same feeling in a painting that you could otherwise have in a video that has voice acting and music and a very good storyline. But it's still a challenge that I really enjoy. And it's a challenge that I've tackled with this painting. I don't really think I've succeeded, although I like this painting. I think it's one of my better ones. I don't think this painting has succeeded at capturing that feeling. It does have a kind of a somber side, yet kind of positive emotion to it, but it's not quite there yet. I will have several more attempts at this. I mean, I'll probably keep trying at capturing this emotion for as long as I'm alive, I guess. But yeah, this wasn't it. And as for my next painting, I've already started it. It's not going to attempt to capture that feeling. In fact, it's going to go pretty much the opposite route. So stay tuned for that. That's kind of a teaser for the next video, for the next painting, I guess. So I did something a little bit different this time. In my process, I basically just switched out two parts. Usually I would put overall values first and then add shadows and lights over it. However, this time I decided to kind of treat everything as if it had the exact same value and then add values on top of it. So I did shadows and lights first, and then I added values over that. It was kind of an experiment on my part that proved to be successful, that I will repeat in my next piece. It actually allowed me to control lights a little bit better, because I could kind of almost carelessly apply lights and shadows everywhere, and then later I could rethink every single light and shadow on every single object. I mean, just to put like a brief, easy example, like materials don't absorb the light or reflect light in the same way. Probably the most extreme example would be like shiny smooth metal compared to old tree bark. Like old tree bark will not absorb or reflect nearly as much light as metal would. And the reason I kind of switched out the process is because I'm always kind of hunting for the perfect formula. So that's kind of a fun, unending challenge when it comes to art. You're always kind of trying to improve your process, like move a few pieces here and there and just figure out what works best, either in general or just for you. And I'm also kind of trying to figure out what is the most secure style, like what is the most fail-safe approach I can have. Which is part of the reason why I kind of divided all the basic fundamentals into different segments of my painting process. And this is something that even more advanced painters do. Like if I recall correctly, Dave Greco, one of my favorite artists, one of the artists I've actually learned quite a lot from just looking at his painting, not even his videos. In one of his videos, he stated something to the extent that he's either afraid or he doesn't like to start in color. He always prefers to start in black and white, pretty much finish the painting in black and white, and then add colors on top of that. So I'm not a mind reader, but I can take a few wild guesses as to why he prefers that approach. And my main guess would be that he knows what goes into a painting. He knows what's important. He knows all of the various things you can kind of mess up and fail at, and he just figured out what's the best process for him. So the reason I'm saying this is just to show that even if you're a highly advanced and commercially successful and internet famous painter like he is, it is still good to have a really safe and reliable process. And now I would kind of like to get into the subject of tweaking and accepting your flawed human nature, which is the part that is most related to the final parts of my painting, the parts that I do in Photoshop. And what this is about is realizing that you will probably never get the perfect colors, you will probably never get it right on the first try, and there will probably always be a better palette to express the emotions and the ambient within your painting. So once you kind of get okay with that, once you kind of come to terms with that fact, you can allow yourself to play with colors and stuff like that way more in Photoshop. Like some people would consider digital art to be kind of a cheating. I mean, this is a really old school view. Most people don't have it anymore, but I think that a lot of people still kind of feel it when they see like changing colors through curves and hue saturation, stuff like that. It does almost look kind of like cheating, but I would be willing to bet that even the old masters that were amazing painters and ended up in world history probably looked at a lot of their paintings and kind of wished that they could tweak a few nuances. And even if they didn't, if they had the tools that we now have in Photoshop and stuff like in programs like that, they would probably use that. If nothing else, at least to experiment. This is one of the amazing things about Photoshop and Procreate and similar programs, is experimenting in those programs is a learning process, not just for using those programs, but for realizing what you can do with colors and what you can achieve. To the point where my entire painting process kind of heavily relies on this final part where I tweak everything. The way I kind of approach a painting at the start or at the first 90% of my process is I kind of just try to get in really good materials to play with later. I kind of put the details and the colors everywhere, and then later on with Photoshop and with various tweaks, I try to figure out what works, what doesn't work, what should be put kind of forefront and more attention grabbing, and what should be placed more in the background or less attention grabbing. And I experiment with this for hours on end until I figure out what works best. And it's very common for me to do pretty drastic shifts. I mean, at least every single painting I've made as of recently, like every little bit of the painting was tweaked to an extent. And I mean, this painting is a perfect example of it again. Like if you look at the Procreate version and then you look at the Photoshop version where I tweaked everything, like it's noticeably different, and both paintings have a noticeably different feel to them. Obviously, I prefer the one in Photoshop, but I guess it's up to you to figure out which one you like more. And finally, just to kind of add to this, like a fun fact or something, I have no idea what's going on with the background. Like, absolutely no idea. Like, for example, the thing above the girl, the main character, I guess, is that water? Are those plants? Are those bubbles around her? I have absolutely no idea. And that was kind of a part of the plan. This is just what happens when I let my brain do whatever. I mean, if I was an abstract painter, I would probably explore shapes like that. And now I don't really like abstract paintings on their own, but I like taking elements from them and putting them into more realistic artwork. I think that works amazing and could really do wonders. But yeah, I kind of consider the background around them to be just kind of a reflection of how my brain works. So I guess it's like a mental self-portrait around her. And that's really it. Thank you for watching and see ya!